In this video, we'll take a look at blockLive, which is our new preset for Livid Instruments Block and Ableton Live 8. Like our other products, this preset runs an MT player, which is a MIDI translator powered runtime, and it just sits in the background translating information between the block and live. First, we'll take a look at the global controls. These are controls that stay the same regardless of which mode or bank you're in. First, you've got a shift button that modifies the function of other controls. Next to that, you've got the mode select button that takes you to the mode select page. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. Underneath that, you've got grid left and right. Alright, shift plus these buttons will move between devices on the selected track. Underneath that, if you're in the launch page, these will move the grid selector up and down. Otherwise, these will navigate scenes. And the shifted function is to move between banks of device parameters. So if you're controlling a device like EQ8 that has multiple banks of parameters, you can move between them here. Alright, and finally you've got play stop. On the mode select page, you can switch between knob modes, fader modes, and button modes. As you can see, the selected modes are indicated by a flashing LED. Also, when you're switching between modes, the name of the selected mode is shown in the status bar in Live, which makes getting used to using the preset much easier. Also, you've got 4 view controls over here. This will hide or show the browser. This will switch between session and arrange, switch between clip and track view, and hide the detail view or show it. By default, the knobs control volume for the 8 tracks in the selected bank. In the next mode, they control pan. In the next mode, you have device control. And I should also mention that mode plus shift will turn the selected device on or off. The next modes are send modes, send A through send H. Alright, and with any of these modes, you can remap them if you're not using them. So for example, if you only ever use 4 sends, you can remap the knobs in these other 4 modes to whatever you like. So that's basically 32 knobs to map to whatever you want. Alright, and the same goes for the fader modes as well. By default, the faders control master level and Q. In the next mode, they control master pan and the crossfader. The next mode, you've got tempo and tempo fine. This mode gives you an 8-track by 7 scene clip matrix to work with. The LEDs indicate where your clips are. If a clip is playing, it'll flash slow. If it's waiting to play, it'll flash fast. The bottom row is clip stop, and then shift plus the last column is scene launch, and then stop all. This mode gives you some additional track controls. You got track select up here on the top, and then master select. This row will launch clips. You could choose which clips these launch with scene up and down here. Alright, shift plus this row will launch the current scene. The row beneath that will stop clips or stop all clips. This row here will mute tracks or unmute all, solo tracks, unsolo all, arm tracks, unarm all tracks. All of the subsequent button modes share an additional set of global controls that are available from the top 2 rows of buttons. You've got metronome on and off, global record on and off, overdub on and off, current track arm on and off. This is track left and right. Shift plus track left and right will increase or decrease tempo. Next to that, you got clip record, and I'll show you that once we get to the instrumental modes. Next to that, you got global quantization on and off. And if you press this down, you can use track left and right to set the global quantization value. Next to that, you got record quantization on and off. And again, if you press this down, you can use these buttons to set your record quantization value. In this mode, you can chop clips up or play them chromatically. It's split into 3 sub-modes, chop 16, chop 32, and chromatic. In chop 16, the pads will be assigned to 16 evenly distributed start points based on the length of the selected clip. So it basically splits the clip into 16 parts, and you can then trigger those parts from the pads here. So to show you how this works, I'm just going to play a clip all the way through, and then I'll make changes to it the next time around. Alright, chop 32 is essentially the same, it just has 32 start points to work with. Alright, and finally in chromatic mode, you can transpose clips. This side does descending pitches, this side does ascending pitches. This mode gives you a set of 4x4 drum pads to work with. Alright, you can control the octave of these pads with this row of buttons up here. Alright, the buttons out in the corners here are last pads. These will trigger whichever pad you triggered last. Alright, these are also lockable, so for example, let's say you like this sound right here, you can lock it to this last pad, for example, and now it'll always be available no matter where you move in terms of octaves. Alright, these buttons out here control the velocity of the last pads and the drum pads. Alright, and you've also got a 16 levels mode. In this mode, the left side pads work just like they do in the other mode. And then these pads give you 16 levels of control over the last pad that you pressed. Alright, in this case I have velocity control. You can also control pitch, or both. Alright, once again, clip record is one of the additional global controls. It's this button right here, and this basically just makes recording clips easier, and it works with either audio or MIDI clips. In this example, I'll be doing it with a MIDI clip though. So the first thing you do is you set your global quantization value to how long you want your clips to be. In this case, I want my clips to be 2 bars, so I'll set that, and then you just trigger clip record. In this mode, you've got a 4x4 set of chromatic pads. Alright, just like in drum mode, you can control the octave here and the velocity here. In the corners, you've got sustain buttons. Alright, here you've got pitch bend up and down. Alright, and up here you've got 2 add notes, which will add notes to the note that you're currently playing. This one will add a note that's an octave beneath the note that you're playing. This one will add a note an octave above. In this mode, you can learn chords and their associated notes to the button columns here. You've got 6 chords to work with, and each can have up to 5 notes in it. Alright, there's a couple different ways to do the learning. You could do it by playing the chord directly from a second controller, like this. Alright, so you've got the chord assigned here, and the individual notes assigned above it. Alright, to show you that again. Alright, you can also learn chords that are contained in MIDI clips in Live. The process is basically the same. You just turn on learning, and then just launch the clip that has the chords in it. Alright, and now the chord's assigned. Alright, you've also got a sustain button here, and velocity controls here, just like in the other instrumental modes. Up here you've got some transposition controls. You can transpose by semitones or by octaves. User 1 and 2 work the same way. Each of them gives you 5 button faders and 6 buttons that are assignable in Live. Alright, so to show you how that works, I'm going to assign the first button fader here to a macro, and the on-off switch to the first button here. Alright, so now I can control the macro with this button strip, and I can also make changes here, and they'll be reflected on the controller as well. With the button down here, I could toggle the rack on and off. If I press this button, it'll turn this whole button row into momentary switches. So now the rack will only be on when my finger's held down on the button.